Our guests are here tonight to discuss an exciting project. With that said, we will start with roll call. Start with myself, George Bennington, Doug Murphy, Hank Green, Keith Ritchie,
Sue Leone, Lindsay Heron.
Tim Klimpo.
Okay, thank you. Next on the agenda is to approve the minutes from our last meeting on October 11, 2023. Is there a motion to approve? Thank you, Doug. Second. Thank you, Susan. All those in favor? Okay, opposed? So carries. Here. We have a chair ready for you. You can lie on the table too if you'd like. Ouch.
Thank you. Sorry. I tried to get you over time.
Oh, no, I understand. I'm glad that you're here. So we just approved the minutes. Him as such. The next item on the agenda is to approve our 2024 meeting dates, which is outlined in your packets here. Okay. Are there any questions about these dates?
These are the same ones. Yeah, last time.
That's like,
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. Is there a motion to approve? Sure. Keith, thank you. Lindsay, second. All those in favor? Opposed? So carries. Thank you. And thanks for putting this together. We appreciate it. Next is the New Garden Club with the exciting landscaping discussion on the boardwalk at Irwin Park. The floor is yours.
I hope we have
Mike's on.
Mike on, Mike Sigan.
I am. Can you hear me?
I'm Judy Neville.
Julie
Julie
Marcus.
Marcus.
Wendy Dewey. Can we hear you?
Are we,
Just by the way, as a point of order for somebody, we approved this project about a year and a half ago, if I'm not mistaken. I don't have the
Yeah.
exact date. Yet.
Yeah.
That was approved. So this is just a further step to explain what's going to happen.
the
Right,
design?
It's kind of an update. you know,
Okay,
so-
exactly.
Yeah, so you're correct. So you approved the project itself. Richter and Segan has been tasked with design development.
Mhm.
So they're working towards that final element, when we're at a point where we're gonna be stepping off, going to inland wetlands and to P&Z for what's called an 8-24 review. So before we do that, we wanted to come back to the Park and Rec Commission before stepping off to another commission and then having the commission say, we didn't get to see it. So
Right.
we'd rather have you see it again. So Mike will bring you through the project, and then from here, hopefully you'll like what you see. And at that point in time, we'll look to go to inland wetlands sometime in the winter, as well as P&Z for, like I said, an 8-24, which is basically whether or not the plan fits with the plan of conservation and development. It's usually yes or no vote in that regard. In this regard, it does, because it has to do with beautifying our parks and utilizing our parks, and that's one large aspect of the current VOCD, the 2014 VOCD. So we'll let Mike kind of bring you through the entire project, and if you have any questions, we're happy to answer whatever you got in the end.
Okay.
Okay.
Got him?
Thank you.
Mike, can't hear you. Wait just a minute. Try now, Mike, please.
Okay, hello, can you hear me?
That's
Yes, much better, Mike. Thank you.
Oh, great, super. Thank you, Tiger and John. I'm Mike Segan with Richter and Segan. With me tonight, working on the project is Grant Lasapio from our office as well. We are landscape architects working with the New Canaan Garden Club and the town on improvements to Irwin, as Tiger kind of gave a quick background on. Specifically the Hillside Terrace and Wetland Boardwalk. And just a little more background next, Grant. The improvements we'll be talking about tonight are really on the back side of Irwin. You all are probably familiar with the park itself. Behind the old estate house is a hillside where those improvements are located. The front of the park is pretty much a landscaped area and part of the old landscaped estate. Next. This is a great illustration of that area that we're talking about. You can see the front of the park with lawns and more landscaped areas, open field. The back hillside is meadow and woodland area. The two areas that we're looking at for the hillside terrace is between the Irwin House and the Boers Pavilion on the hillside there, which is mostly meadow right now. And then the boardwalk area down in the wetlands in that lower corner of the site. Next. We're very familiar with the park, having done this original master plan shortly after the town acquired the estate. And back, gosh, this was done in 2006. It really was used to open up the park, get access in terms of parking. And you could even see in this very early master plan, before a lot of thought and development had been put into a later master plan, that we were talking about a boardwalk down in that corner of the site, as well as some sort of feature on that hillside terrace area as well. One of the, in addition to accessing the park for vehiculars and parking, was opening up the park in terms of accessing from the neighborhood in a major multi-purpose trail around the park itself, which really was the first major phase that the Garden Club did. And this flexi paved trail that was installed really opened up the park, and it was a major, I would say, defining element in the park in terms of an organizing element. Next. You know, the trail was fit to the terrain of the park. It's fully accessible and so heavily used. Again, every time I visit the park, I see so many different people, people pushing strollers and small kids learning to ride a bike and so on and so forth. So it's the build it and they will come syndrome here. And that, again, as I said, this FlexiPay is the organizing, one of the major organizing elements in the park. And the two improvements you're going to see kind of play off this trail as well and add even more diversity and improvement and amenity to the park itself. Next. This is the Stimson Master Plan that was recently completed, working with the Garden Club, in which the intent to add more amenity improvements to the park were taken to a more deeper and higher level than our original master plan. And these are the two areas that we'll be addressing tonight. The smaller, excuse me, circle at the top of the drawing is the hillside terrace, that sloped meadow area between the Boers Pavilion and the house on that hillside behind. And then the larger circle, the wetland area, boardwalk area that's in the very back lower section of the site. Next. One of the first steps that we did in taking the design to a higher level is a more detailed survey of this area. It locates, the actual as-built condition for the flexi-paved trail that runs around the perimeter of this area. Gets topography, which is really critical in both designing these from a grading standpoint into the topography and grading elevations on the site, both for the boardwalk area as well as the hillside terrace. Locates all the features on the site, including vegetation, existing trees, and also locates the wetlands. And the wetlands were in a different configuration when recently mapped than what we had used and the Stimson Group had used in terms of their master planning efforts. So it was good to get updated locations for the wetlands. Next. So these are the two concepts for those two areas as they fall in those existing survey that we just showed. The hillside terrace, the upper left, and then the wet boardwalk. And just wanted you to see the bigger picture here. We're going to go through each one of these in more detail, but just see how they relate to one another and how they relate on the hillside behind their house in the Gorse Pavilion itself. Next. First, we'll talk about is that hillside terrace. It was again, the idea was to create an interesting configuration on the hillside overlooking the meadow that would act as a gathering area, a place for maybe an outdoor classroom to sit and read, look out over the meadow, etc. Just a different kind of configuration and destination point in the park added to that diversity. Next. Here's an enlargement of that survey. You can see the flat area in front of the Gorse Pavilion, the trees there frame the view looking out over the meadow, and then the sloping hillside where a terraced configuration and grading will fit in nicely to the existing conditions. Next. And here's the concept for that, the hillside terrace itself. The very center, it's labeled hillside terrace, is a series of sloped lawn terracing where you have a flat area that you could both sit on and set chairs or different activities on, and then steeper slope between each one of those areas. So you're almost creating a natural landform amphitheater up the hillside in a lower flat area at the very bottom, which could be location for certain specific events. Also part of this, not only the landform that's created by the hillside terrace, we're also proposing sort of a rounded earth form. It's labeled as earthwork sculpture on the drawing, a very interesting circular landform that would kind of announce this kind of unique area as you come down the flexi-paved path. And off of that main path is a secondary flexi-paved path that comes to the bottom of the hillside terrace and then provides an accessible route back up to behind your own house, you can see here, and then back up to the parking along the road. There's also an accessible route to the top of the hillside terrace that is being traced with the pointer there. Also at the top is a seat wall that defines the edge of the upper lawn in front of the Gorse Pavilion, a wall that you can sit on and look out over the hillside terrace as well as the meadow below, and nicely defines that upper lawn and activity space in front of the Gorse Pavilion. That's and also another sort of layer of feature here is a grove of specimen trees, in this case a birch walk, in framing and following the walk on either side of the hillside terrace as you look out over, providing another interesting both vegetation and feature as part of this overall destination. Next. This is just an image of what that landform might look like. You can see that it provides really a very interesting seating area for people to gather. and sit, the upper left, upper right, and lower right, contouring into the hillside. Just even an interesting landform to look at if you're just walking around the park. And then I talked about that circular landform that announces the area. Here's an example from out in the Midwest of what that might look like. Also, these are great areas for kids to play on and roll on and just have fun running around on. So it provides a very different kind of space to the park that continues that diversity in the park. Next. And this just, this last slide for the area just shows some thoughts on construction implementation and the area that would be part of the overall construction area that would be defined with construction fencing and the different phasing, the earthwork that would be done to create these terraces and landform, and the construction of the flexi-paved path where that construction entrance might be as we looked into the actual implementation. That's a quick overview of that particular feature and proposal. Next. The second improvement that the Garden Club is looking at, and this is, I think they'll speak to this later. This is probably the highest priority in terms of what they want to move forward with first, and that's the boardwalk down, accessing the woodland and the wetland area in that lower portion of the site. Next. This is a 3D sketch that was done as part of the master planning effort, showing the existing flexi-paved path on the right and the boardwalk coming off of that and extending down into the wetland area, providing yet another different types of path and destination point on the site, and an opportunity to get within the woodland area as well as much closer to nature and some of the more natural parts of the site. Next. Some examples of boardwalks that the boardwalk itself, we're hoping, and it looks like we can get most of it very close to grade. So just would require a curbing along the side, but these are just some examples of things we've worked on and some other, another project on the lower right that have used boardwalks to, at a very low height, closer to the terrain to move in and around natural areas, including typically we'll locate these around major trees, so they're somewhat flexible in terms of their layout and design. We're looking for a wider boardwalk here to allow plenty of room for strollers and people walking side by side to pass one another. The one on the lower left is a little bit over 8 feet wide in what we're looking at this point for the width of the boardwalk. So it would be a little bit narrower than what you see on the lower left, but somewhere in that range versus some of the other ones are narrow. Next. If we get to a point where the boardwalk is more than 30 inches above the grade around it, sometimes even less than that, depending on the situation, or it's steeper than 5%, we need to go to a more railing type of design. And these are just some examples of boardwalks we've done using different materials, both for the floor, the decking, as well as the railing, just to show you some examples. We have maybe 1 or 2 spots where this might have to occur in the boardwalk itself, but generally it's going to be held close to the ground. And the upper right just shows some portion although probably minimal in this example, will be of a path that's at grade itself, maybe accessing the boardwalk. And that's, it still can make it feel fairly natural in its configuration. Next. This is the survey enlargement of that particular area. The wetlands about 14,000 square feet. It's certainly a different configuration and shape and size than what we had originally thought in the original master plan. What's interesting about this is it's not a wetland that's in a flat, low, swampy area, but it's a hillside wetland, which is caused by seepage from water coming, down the hillside and coming out of the ground. You're going to see there's quite a change in elevation from the very highest entry point to the lowest point of the boardwalk. It's over 20 feet, 20 to 25 feet. This also shows that topography, the existing flexi paved path, as well as some notable trees that are in the project area that have driven, in some cases, the location and shape of the design. Next. There's some wonderful mature trees in this part of the park and where the boardwalk is. On the left, a quad multi-stem, really old, large red maple that's down in the lower part. In the center is a large oak that it is a real kind of focal point that we've designed the boardwalk around, and we'll have some comments about its health and condition. The upper right, some red maple that it's just a huge old tree, well over 100, maybe closer to 150 years old. Many of the larger mature material are in the very back part along the property line in the back of this particular part of the park. Next. This section is like many other parts of the park and many other parts of parks around town and other places is filled with invasives, and we'll have an invasive management plan as part of this as well. It would be phased in over time, but you can see knotweed, brambles, and briars so bad that we couldn't even get into the depths of this area until John Howe was good enough to literally blaze a trail along the proposed boardwalk layout, which really opened up the site so we could see what we were working with. But eventually these vines and invasives will be gotten managed and under control. Next. So this is the concept plan that's a result of the survey and all the information and kind of a refinement of what was in the master plan concept as well. It consists of a boardwalk pretty much at grade in a loop fashion, I'd say about 850 linear feet long. This loop is. It has two entrance points. The north or lower entry point is down below and would come in almost immediately, take you into the wooded area. And then the south or upper, it's actually you're going uphill quite a bit, is the south entry point as well. At that entry point, there's calling it hillside overlook. It's a great spot as you're on the trail itself to look out over this wetland area and this boardwalk area. It gives you a great vantage point. It's also a good resting point along this perimeter walk as you're walking uphill around this trail. So it's a good location for a bench and just place to sit. The another feature of the boardwalk is what we're labeled here as a wetland overlook. It's around that. It was sited around that 40-inch oak that was we showed just an image of in the middle part of that slide. Just a wonderful tree as you're looking from the outside looking in. When we got in and opened it up, it has a number of wounds and probably will have to be taken down. So we'll probably be modifying this section and getting a slightly different type of boardwalk. We're looking at a couple different options of how to approach that now. So this is the basic layout of the trail system in the boardwalk. I think it will again fit nicely in. Pretty much is designed to move around the various some of those very nice trees and feature some of those as you move through. Next, the proposed enhancements once the boardwalk is built involves removing invasive species and adding more native woodland forested wetland species, trees, shrubs, and herbaceous material. There's a great opportunity. Part of the concept plan is to create a native wet meadow planting, which would have been right around that wetland overlook area. There should be, it's the one area where there's not a lot of mature vegetation, especially if that tree has to come down, more sun to support, herbaceous species. And the idea there is to create almost like a wetland garden of native plant material that acts as a sort of an educational opportunity as well for what native opportunities there are for these kinds of enhancements and conditions. Next. And this is just a view of some opportunity for those wetland native plantings, Joe Pye weed, and you can combine clethra, other native shrubs as well in a garden-esque area like this, but again, fully in all native and with native ferns and other species up around and along the boardwalk. Next. This shows the two entrances. John Howe was good enough to clear a path along here, as I mentioned. The upper left-hand photograph shows that lower entrance in where you almost immediately go into the wooded area. And the shot on the right shows where the path has been cleared, where the boardwalk will kind of come in or come out of that wooded area. On the lower left is that where that overlook was proposed in the south or upper entrance. You can see initially that's all knotweed and invasives there. You couldn't even see into the site. And then John again came out and cleared that opening. You can look down into the that whole boardwalk wetland area. And again, as we said, it drops about 20-25 feet down there. And that real large oak it's sort of in the left back side that would have been a major kind of focal point that may have to come down. But there are many other good sized trees in there that provide, initial cover, and the proposed planting plan will help to reforest the area and revegetate the area. Next. This is also talks to the construction implementation. The highest priority first phase would be the boardwalk itself, shown here in black dashed items, including some form of probably the hillside overlook and the wetland overlook down below. future phases would involve species management, invasive species management removal, as well as adding plantings, the native plantings, and enriching the area with more native material. And eventually, it'd be nice to have interpretive signage down here that talks about the wetland area, the benefits of a diverse habitat like this, and invasive management control, and what could happen before and after when you tackle a project like this and bring an area that's overrun with invasives back to its more natural condition. Next. So that's an overview of both projects, and I know the club can speak for themselves, but I know the wetland boardwalk is the highest priority, and what would probably be first off the list in terms of the projects and priority list. But that does conclude a quick overview of both projects, and be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, I've got a couple questions about the hillside terrace. When you showed that, you had like the grass level part, and then I guess it also was grass on the more or less vertical part. And I just want to confirm that I had that right, that you're not planning to have like any like little stone walls or anything as a restraining wall.
No, it's a good question. I think that some of the initial concepts that were done had walls in there, and I think the garden club wanted a much softer approach. So there would be there's a seawall at the top, but the basic concept is all grass and a much softer solution.
So then I just have questions, and I'm just want to make clear, these are not objections, these are questions. So if it's all grass, how do you mow the grass that's on a virtually, vertical situation? I mean, you just have some guy out there with a weed whacker for hours and hours. Cause I see my guys doing, so that's one question. And then what about, are you worried about it subsiding at all? If all you've got is grass holding it together, with some of the rainfalls and snowfalls and things we have, isn't there a worry that this may all come sloshing down over time?
Yeah, it's pretty stable. We typically would sod something like this first of all and get it established, so it's not susceptible to erosion. And because of their flat terraces, there's large areas that are flat and then they're stepped. You really don't get erosion on these types of configurations. The question on the maintenance in the slope is a very good one. And the images we showed you, we probably would not make the slope between the flat terraces quite as steep. I know John Howe's people are very skilled at mowing, but to make it a little less challenging to mow, in those sloped areas, you probably mow every other time or every third time, where you would mow the flat areas more on a regular basis. So you're correct. It is a little bit of a challenge in terms of maintenance, but again, we try to slope the 2 feet in between the flat terraces. We'll try to slope that at a little flatter area, so it's not so difficult to mow, as you see in the pictures.
Guess I'll add just one more question.
Yeah.
If that worked out to be a problem, would it be difficult to later on put in like little stone retaining walls, even though that wasn't the first choice, you know, if it wasn't really working, could you put in stone walls, you know, later? Little retaining stone walls, so you'd have the same concept, but you'd have stone walls instead of, grass growing on a semi-vertical.
Sure,
Well,
sure, absolutely.
Mike, let me answer it for a little bit. So it's not vertical, so it's not a step.
Yeah,
Okay, it's
I think
it's
it's
a,
really
it's a, it's a
something like
terrace
that.
and it's slope, right?
Yeah,
And this slope is actually, we wouldn't be doing it more on a grade of more than a 2-on-1 or a 3-on-1, the soil would be able to handle.
oh, yeah.
All right, so it's really comes down to what the soil stability is, not necessarily the grass on top of it. So what we would be looking at is laying it back. Your 2-on-1 is probably your most vertical slope that you would even look at. That's on a highway embankment. Even there, they want to go to a 3-on-1. We'd be at a much gradual slope, all right? So we shouldn't have that subsidence or subsidence that you're talking about, or the need for a stone wall there. It should hold pretty well, and given the history and the usage in other areas that we've seen, there's actually one in Hartford and there's one at Wesleyan University that I saw, and they're actually quite nice.
So
Yeah.
do we have because that takes a smaller mower than the big riding mowers that we use in most of our parks, is that I see the guys use.
We have smaller mowers too, that will be able to cut on the bank that Tiger's talking about.
Okay.
Which is a little bit different than the pictures you saw.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
but I appreciate it. I appreciate this. I really do. Because he's ready to kill me.
Yeah, my initial response was not, would walls be needed? I thought the question was more if we ever wanted to put walls in there at a later time, which certainly could happen, but no, they will not be needed if this is installed properly. There shouldn't be any issues with erosion.
I had a few questions, and again, as Keith said, this is only in support of what you all are doing. I think it's fantastic. Have you socialized this with the neighbors, okay, of Irwin Park? Because this boardwalk's gonna come close to their property line, okay? Have you socialized it with wetlands as well as the zoning commission? So, you know, potentially head off, do you see any landmines out there that you have to be aware of?
We had a meeting with Kathleen Holland, Mineral Wetlands, so we had Kathy likes to do a pre-construction meeting, you know, kind of a preview. So she got exactly what you saw here today. Via Zoom again with Mike and myself. And then from there, she's developing, as Mike finalizes his design, she'll be developing her wetland checklist from there. But Kathleen didn't see any issues with what she had seen, which is exactly what you're seeing now.
Right.
So she didn't feel that the commission was going to either. We had cut the area, or I should say John had cut the area so she could go out there and look, and then her commission members, if they so chose, they could go out there and see that path and actually walk the path if you wanted to, you know. And some of them had done that, the exact same thing. They hadn't had any concerns. And as far as the neighbors, Judy's been in contact with the neighbors to, I guess you call that to the west. And John actually met with the neighbor at the time that he cut it. Because the neighbor came out, he was actually at his pool, he came out over and was asking what we were doing. And John mentioned what we were doing, and he doesn't have a concern. We should have a good amount of depth of foliage and growth between the boardwalk and the property. There was a couple of locations where we could see through to the property, and we looked to plant in those areas to try to increase the screening.
Right.
Yeah, Tiger, I failed to really bring that up, but we do have additional screening, evergreens in spots where you know, we get closest to a neighborhood house, and you know, Grant's showing with his pointer there, and then down below. You know, we were particularly sensitive about the surrounding neighbors and the original master plan, the layout of the path, and we continue to carry that over here. So there's some good vegetation around the perimeter now, and we're complementing that with some evergreens to further provide screening, even when this time of year when the leaves are off the trees, and that buffer gets to get a little more transparent. So
last time we, talked numbers here, it was,
Yeah.
cost was north of 400,000. Do you know what the cost of this is and how we're paying for it?
Do you want me,
Right,
to
no, it's fine.
take that or what? Well, no, that, the cost is gonna be at least 400,000. And, we have a number of donors. There are people who've been with us a long time. When we originally discussed this about a year and a half ago, I sent out the master plan to all the key people who were interested. Make sure there was no neighbor concerns or we addressed them. The immediate neighbors behind have offered to help raise funds for trees along with the Woods End people.
Okay.
They were very gracious.
Great.
So, yeah, I think we'll make it.
Great.
They've
Well,
identified a
Fantastic,
few,
you know, I know that's a
Yeah.
big number.
huge. And 175 is, as you know, is approved for the budget.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
And then, Francesca, you have a question?
I did, so to clarify, 400,000 is just for, at least for the boardwalk, part of the project, is that correct?
I'm sorry, which is?
The 400,000
Yeah.
that you're talking
Plus,
about
yeah.
is just for the boardwalk,
Yeah.
priority,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, and that field that we saw pictured there, is that actually in existence? Because when you walk the Flexi path,
It's a
you
mess.
just see woods.
That's right.
So there is a meadow back there?
No,
No, not yet. You'd be creating it?
Yes.
Okay, that's what was unclear.
Yes.
Okay.
she's very good at it. They put in
Similar to
the,
what
where
we
the
did with
goats
the
were.
goats. We planted that half acre with grass.
She
and
did.
We put a lot of plugs in and literally with our hands. a lot of- So,
Yes.
We have a number of
So there
volunteers
is
to
a
plant.
current meadow on the other side that we will be replicating.
If you, well, a little bit different because it's, slightly wetter.
Yes.
But if you look, I don't know if you're familiar with where we planted maple trees on kind of the bottom of the top. If you do that.
Over the goats. farm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, so if you walk toward where the wetlands is gonna be, you will see a really nice meadow where you couldn't see anything before the goats got there. It was very similar conditions.
Okay, great. It really does sound wonderful. I just had a couple of questions. Another is, you talked about the height off the floor, of the walkway, the boardwalk. And I'm concerned about turtles being able to pass and blah, blah, blah. Is it gonna be up high enough so that
Yes.
the animals?
Yes.
Okay. Right.
Have most of you had the opportunity to walk it or see where you
I walked the
cleared
park
it?
yesterday.
Yeah,
I saw where it's been marked. I didn't actually go out
Oh,
there.
it's a journey.
Yeah.
You have to do that. Not you, but everyone. It's hard.
Looks great.
After all the approvals are finally nailed down, could you give us some idea of the estimated time of completion for both projects?
Oh, we're not, I don't think the Hillside Terrace is not on the calendar yet. We're working on this. We're working on the boardwalk area.
And
That'll-
what would the estimated time of completion be for that?
It depends on our fundraising.
Once you get- Okay.
Right.
So this is not a next year kind of thing.
It
Possibly.
could be, there's
Oh,
Yeah,
could be.
possibly.
grants that are available
Yeah.
that we may receive.
We're hoping within the year to
Yeah.
at least begin, but it's going to require first approval and then
Mhm.
fundraising, because we obviously won't begin until we've secured the funds.
Thank you.
Will you be coming for us again, or is this it for us?
If you like.
We approved it.
Yeah.
I mean, well, to Francesca's point, if the plan changes markedly from where we are, then absolutely we would go back and say, okay, this is where, given the fundraising efforts, you're giving other, we're still surveying portions of it to make sure that, the topography will work and the ramping will work, because there's concerns, not concerns, I should say, but we want to make sure that it's ADA compliant, things of that nature. So if it does change where the fact that we've got to move it markedly or reshape it, where we would consider that to be a market change, then absolutely we would come back. But if it stays in somewhat of the form that you see here, then likely we might, we would continue forward at that point.
Also, parking will remain where it is. There's no plan to expand that.
At present, no. It's a good question, but at present, no. The master plan did show parking up above. in the, I guess in the area behind the existing parking stalls, there was parking in that area. But at present, we don't see a need to continue. If usage of the park continues to grow, then yeah, the only thing that we're looking at right now from a perspective on a maintenance side, from our engineering point, with John and his staff, is to put pervious pavers on the lower lot. So right now it's a gravel lot. That to actually change that over to a pervious paver. One, we'll get the pervious, we'll get the water, the porosity, we'll get water back into the ground. And two, it'll lessen the maintenance requirements from the park staff, and then probably beautify the area as well. So that's actually Maria Coppola, our town engineer, is working towards that. But that's the only parking aspect that we're looking at present. Any change, I should say.
During the construction, is there gonna be a disruption to the path?
To the,
Yeah,
you
the
mean the
main-
flexi
The main
Oh,
path?
wow.
Should be, they should be able to do everything off,
Okay.
and then we'll, obviously, we would, there'll be silt fencing, and then we'll put construction fencing up, so people can't necessarily come into the area, to the work area. But no, apart from bringing, supplies and materials in, no. The overall construction itself is, for the boardwalk, is relatively simple. It doesn't require too much heavy equipment at that point. We're looking at something similar to what happened at the Nature Center, and they were able to walk everything out on the existing boardwalks and build as they went versus, having to trample around the other areas, so.
Wonderful presentation. Any other questions or comments? Well, we really thank you for your time. Michael, thank you for the wonderful presentation. You obviously go forward with our, 100% endorsement. If we can be of any further help with the wetlands or the planning, let us know. But it sounds like things are in good motion. So,
Thank you very much. Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good night.
Right. Okay, next on the agenda are a yearly update on our paddle boards. Thank you, Francesca and Keith.
Yeah, can I just, I think Don's gonna pull up a slide, I know. But just as a opening remark, I think we need to kind of, look at our calendarization, because having the annual paddle report, when we are in the middle of, well, really the first part of November, people have only started putting paddles for the most part, in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And so I think it would be much smarter to have your annual report at the end of the paddle season.
Spring.
More like March of the following year, when you could look back and say, well, really, what usage do we really have? How many people, do we have problems? Because right now, this has been 2 weeks of usage.
Right.
And so, but, so you take whatever we say as a grain of salt.
Right.
And that.
Julie knows, I'll definitely, when I put together the calendar, the yearly reports, I will move this to March, April.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a good point. Yeah.
Just makes more sense.
Yeah.
Sorry, Keith, I can't pull it up because I'm not logged on to the right network.
Okay, so I'm gonna look over. Show here. So I'm kind of repeating the point that John provided as the first bullet, which is, you don't really have the numbers so far for 2023. They're very early. The bottom line is we presently have sold 249 memberships, with accounts for 346 individuals. So those are and I wanted to confirm it, but I didn't have the chance earlier. The 249, who call those memberships, are those paddle passes?
If you buy a family pass, that's why there'd be more individuals.
Okay. Yeah. And I would say, so by the way, in case anyone didn't know, these days you get your paddle pass. So you take a photo or you get it on your electronic wallet. There is no physical pass that you're carrying around.
Right.
Which I think is a great advancement, because you don't have to worry about losing it or keeping track of it, which is just great.
So Keith, there's no way to compare that to prior years, it's too early, is that?
Oh, you mean the numbers compared to where we were?
It's definitely too early. What we've noticed the last 2 years since we've had pickleball open, when the weather stays nice, people are still playing pickleball. So they didn't have that option before. You know, so they started playing paddle earlier, and then they joined earlier. We're not seeing a drastic difference per year in number of memberships, but we just don't know yet for this year.
So the weather gets really bad, people stop playing pickle, and start playing paddle. At least a certain segment of the population. But having said all that, I play paddle like 3 times a week. And in the morning, the usage level is extraordinarily high. Every court is yours. And we have like a waiting list, guys waiting to play with our group, which is the men's club. There's a ladies league, which has going on tomorrow morning. They take four of the 5 courts, and I think they take 5 if they could. There's a men's league that I don't know that much about, but I guess it's very active as well.
Yep.
So the courts get high usage. There is, and this is anecdotal, not quantitative, but I would say the usage goes from earlier the higher. So as the day goes on, the usage goes down. And
It's in the middle of the day, it's less, but at 7 o'clock at night,
then it
they're
picks
all
up,
names.
yes, and then it picks up again. Mostly because paddle is a game where you want it to be cold when you're playing.
Right.
When it's sunny and warm, it's very uncomfortable to play paddle. So it's in the morning and the late afternoon. Sure.
Right.
So that's another thing. And then I talked to Fred, who's the guy who takes care of the paddle pipe. And people are supposed to kind of, sign in before they play. Right. But they often don't do so.
Yeah.
So in terms of the usage, it's a little, it's not nailed down. So
We need them to start signing in.
Is that
because
yeah,
last year's
he's good.
matches was less than the year before, and if we want to have an additional court, we need to show the numbers of use, so
Yeah.
we're asking everybody to sign in.
Right, so I know that in the men's club, we made a real thing about, make sure you sign in. If you don't do it early, before you leave, tell Fred, so we get signed in. But I don't know if everyone is doing that, and certainly when you get to the individual level, I don't know how. I know Fred is very good about getting the message out.
So does that mean that you don't have to show your pass?
No, you do,
You should walk on.
but you can just walk on and play. And particularly, let's say you're playing doubles, and 3 people are out there, and you show up. Well, you want to just go in and start playing, and they're kind of waiting for you. And you figure, well, I'll go check with Fred later.
And there's some attendants who will come around and say, hey, you can check in with me, but they don't all do it.
Right.
So.
Actually, the
people get away
members
with not
should
checking in.
check in before they play,
They should.
end of story.
And they-
Right.
We don't want to have to discipline them,
But I know I've been guilty
it's not that hard to do.
It kind of depends if there's 3 guys and they need me to be the 4th to start playing, or if there's already 4 guys and I'm gonna go in the lane. Anyhow, so, not to talk about that, the paddle hut, is very popular. I have a little photo on the bottom right there. That's just, we have a gathering like that every Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, at least with the men's club. And then I know in the afternoons and the late, evenings when people are playing, they sometimes have pizza there and beer and things like that. So it's a great facility. And I just noted the last bullet, before I turn this over to Francesca, that there's the town paddle social coming up on November the 25th, and you're all invited. I don't think you
Who's
even
running
need paddle
that?
pass.
Is that you guys running the?
There's the rec department, yes.
Okay,
What time does that
That's how
start?
you sign up.
okay.
What time does that start?
That's a tough question.
6:30 to 8:30 or 9 o'clock, I believe.
6:30 to 8:30, okay. Yeah. Is it like a BOYB or,
Yes.
okay? Can anybody show up or who do we register with?
You register online with your my rec account, just like any other program.
Yeah, I think if you have a paddle pass, then you get the email. So I got the email telling me about
See, there's a fee and there are refreshments.
Mhm. Sure.
Included in your.
it.
Mhm.
And with that, I turn it over to Francesca.
Okay, so I just wanted to throw a few things out there. Yes, I wanted to reiterate that the men's seniors and the men's league also both use courts well. the reservation system still has some quirks, that are difficult. I imagine, I don't know if it's Steve or Zach, who basically, Steve who's doing that. Because most of the people I know call either B and that office, or they call the HUD attendants to, reserve, because they can't get the courts to show up on their thing. And I had a problem, I keep having problems with mine. All right, so that, it would be nice to have that, worked
Well, I
out.
think most of the problem is that, the racket club has the default as, they use court reserve too, so does the field club. Both of those have made it where the default, if you have a court reserve account, is either the racket club or the field club. So the town gets dropped down. You have to go in and, in the top right, and do something to make it that it's a town. So it's because those other two places are using court reserve. For those that reach out to me and have that problem, I do seem to fix it. But not everybody's reached out, so.
Okay. All right, it's a problem that's different than that, because the guy who's having the problem with it doesn't belong to anything else. He's only.
Have to reach out to Steve, if it's somebody.
Okay. All right, and then, the half-hour increments. I talked to you about this. I don't know if you addressed it with Steve, but,
We discussed it, and I can tell you, we didn't finalize our discussion.
okay. All right, so that's still under discussion, but
Still under
I
discussion.
would love an answer to that, because people are hoping to be able to play for 90 minutes of paddle, and if they choose, they can't get half hour, because you're not allowed to reserve for a half hour. That's a quirk, and if you reserve for an hour, you can't choose a half hour somewhere else also and still have 90 minutes. So, that's something. Then it would be great if we could develop a way to report issues, like, the net's not held down. Who do I tell? How do I tell?
Told us when we went up the next, I got the
I
email.
did,
one day,
that's
Next
me.
morning, we fixed it.
Yeah,
I know, you hooked it into the hole that was there in the floor, but it's not the proper thing, but yes, you did. And I thank you for that. But, I know how to do it because I'm on the commission. I'm wondering how, if there's a policy we can develop where people know how to report issues that they come up with.
Usually any issue that comes up, they do tell the attendant, doesn't make.
yeah, I had told Fred about that, like a number of us, and then magically was fixed the next day.
And we sent our mechanic up the next morning.
I noticed that, 'cause I could.
Well, I thought, right?
I would say report to the attendant can get words in from the board.
And if the attendant's not there,
Well,
That's
I'll-
very-
go on the town website, in the recreation department, you'll find all our emails, phone numbers, everything else.
Yeah.
To us, it doesn't really matter whether we get an email, a phone number, a phone call, whatever. Myself, Todd, Steve, or Zach, we're all there.
all right,
And these attendants, I mean, he just happened to be late that day because he missed the train. I mean, these attendants for the most part are there 95% of the time.
okay.
You know, things do happen, life does happen, so.
Okay, also, thank you for having the leaf blower available for us. We have to use that every single time. Right, Keith, you guys, you use the,
I don't think so, or else maybe they.
you're one of the last people on the court, somebody
Yeah.
else has done
But
it.
it, yeah, but I
Fred
mean,
usually
you just
goes
may have a
out
leak
first.
on it, take 5 minutes and you go off the court.
Right, no, I'm just saying thank you
Yeah.
for providing that for us, because it's really useful. And I'm hoping that the policy for the heaters has been talked about, and if it has rained and the rain is cleared, and there's a HUD attendant there, and he or she sees that people are coming at 2 o'clock, that they can turn on the heaters 10 minutes.
As we discussed, our biggest problem is we don't have any more money in this year's budget, which ends in June. So if we use all our money for water in the beginning, we can run out of money and not be able to use the heaters for snow too. So I've got a note that will be increasing the budget for fuel for the heaters, but this winter, we're at the same budget.
So that'll be going into next year's budget, 2024.
It could be into our request for next year's budget, yes.
Okay.
Can I just make it, I mean, the courts, after it rains and it's 60 degrees out, we really should be using the heaters. Not to dry the court. Because the courts have an abrasive on and, they should be okay. We're really only using the heaters when it's probably about 40 degrees or below. So when it was nice weather, 55 degrees, the attendants weren't gonna turn the heaters on to dry the courts.
People slip. It's a liability. I think that's a poor decision, I think. And the clubs around and Weed Beach, which is a Darien's public, paddle courts. Everybody uses the heaters to dry
That's
the
not what I
courts.
was told. That's what you.
Yeah, we're gonna put more money into the budget.
Okay, thanks. We also need new scoreboards. Thanks.
Thanks, Francesca.
Actually, a facilities question about the paddle bike. In terms of like year round, when are the bathrooms open?
Okay, so Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, but we have one bathroom that can be accessed from the
From
outside. So this time of year, we switch it over for inside access only and for the dog park mainly. We put a porta potty out there. Okay, so during the rest of the season, you can't access it from the inside if for some reason you're in there, but you can access it. It's on a time lock.
But
from the
there's this
outside.
other bathroom that you can access from the inside.
Yes, there's
Right,
both a
like-
male and a female
Right.
bathroom that you can access from the inside, and now that the porta potty's there, came today.
Came
Came
today.
today.
Switched over.
So now the bathrooms can only be accessed from the
From the
inside.
inside.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. I just was curious. It felt like, well, and I haven't done it recently, so I didn't really know what the hours were, but when I've been walking through the park in the past, that it wasn't accessible by from the outside.
Okay.
But again, it hasn't been recent, so I just was curious what like, you know,
It's
the hours
basically
were.
from about April 15th to May 1st to usually November 1st. All the dog park people can use
The
from the
outside,
outside.
and anytime, it doesn't get like locked in,
It
or
It
if
does
it's
get
locked,
locked
it
at night.
does.
It's basically 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning till, during the summer, probably 8 o'clock in the night.
I did have another question about lights. Did you change it so that they're on until 10 o'clock? Is
Yes,
that-
that was
Yep.
the time change.
Okay.
Yep.
Right, and, can we turn them on in the morning, 6 o'clock?
Only for you, nobody else.
It's not gonna help me. I can't do anything.
The park doesn't open until sunrise.
Oh, really?
Mhm.
It's on the sign.
It's on the sign, so no, we shouldn't be turning the lights on for paddle it over.
Swimming starts earlier.
It's daylight. We do not open the pool until it's daylight. That pool has no lighting, so
That's right. Yeah.
days are different. Sorry.
Any other questions for Francesca or Keith on the paddle courts? Okay, well, appreciate it. Thank you. The report and your questions. Susan, Spencer's Run.
Okay, mine's pretty easy. I got basically good reports with only one concern. Spencer's Run is, as you all know, the dog park. It opened in 2006. It's an acre and a half and it's really lovely. I was over there on a beautiful day and it's really nice. The annual fee is $25 for residents and $40 for non-residents. And, the membership, is 831, which represents 947 dogs. And there's apparently a 3-dog limit per person. And it's 421 residents and 410 non-residents, so it's really almost 50%. The grass that was planted last winter down in the lower section has held up well. it appears that the upper area is most utilized, and it's possibly because it's near the entry gate, near the parking lot, there's spots up there that get worn, and, as much as people would like. Everybody's staying up, it appears to be staying up at the top when I was there anyway, but the grass is holding up well. The water has been turned off for the winter, it's turned off in the winter, but people bring jugs and fill the water bowls themselves, and that seems to be working fine. I had a conversation, with both, Barbara Scott, who is, I don't know, she's kind of the liaison ambassador of the dog group. Yeah, and also to Sean, our new animal control officer. The members are issued a 4-digit code, which unlocks the gate. And, occasionally there's a issue with the locks, but the Parks Department fixes that right away. There was no complaints about that at all. However, the present system does not have the ability to track usage. And I know that it's been under discussion for a long time to try and upgrade the system, and that appears to be the only concern at the moment anyway, that was voiced by either person that I spoke to. Barbara certainly feels that the entry system could be upgraded with new technology, and, right now, we can't track usage, so, that is a bit of a concern. Barbara also mentioned that there were some funds that had been donated by the family that could be possibly used towards upgrading the system. I didn't get into that discussion with her, but I thought I would.
Does she have them?
I guess so. I mean,
Okay.
she said there were some funds, and I didn't
Yeah.
question her further, but I'm happy to go back to her and.
I get emails from her regularly, so,
Okay.
yeah, because that could help.
Yeah.
Because, the changing of the locks, unfortunately, we'd love to be able to track who came in and out and everything else, and so and Sean, just in case there's ever issues, that type of thing. But the present system with the codes, it's awful easy to have somebody else's code, where we
Well, that-
love to have like swipe cards or little fobs on keychains, that type of thing.
Yeah.
That was exactly Sean's concern, was that he has at least known at least one issue, if not more, where people were using other people's codes.
Yeah.
And I guess it was the one issue that someone was there that really shouldn't have been there. But other than that, there've been, either one of them reported, last year we had some concerns about large dogs and small dogs, and a request and neither one of them had received a complaint. Maybe you have, but neither one of them have received a complaint this year. So Barbara's point was that it's very clear in the rules, and you should control your dog. If your dog becomes aggressive, it's your job to control your dog. So it appears at this point in time that, they don't. The main issue seems to be, the lock and the code problem. Other than that, that's all
Thank you.
I have. That
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, I'm there a lot with my dog, and a lot of people enjoy it and make friends there, and it's a great value add to the town. So, is there any questions for Susan or any comments?
You said that it has the mud situation at the top, mud situation.
Well, no one complained about it when I was there on a beautiful, I went over, it was a gorgeous day, so,
It hasn't gotten muddy yet, but unfortunately, where we are this time of year and grass growth is done,
And all the
we're gonna
grass.
see the top. It won't be in great shape by spring. And this comes back to the original discussion, should we close the dog park like we close athletic fields and have it in better shape? or should it stay open all the time? And people like Barbara and other people that use the dog park said, we'd rather have it open all the time. And yes, we'll have to deal with some money.
And you can certainly, it appears many people come every day and some of them multiple times a day.
Right, yeah.
So,
Yep.
I
It's a
would
money
be a
use.
bit surprised that that's not the,
It's a great
the
one.
choice, is just keep it
My
open.
person, I think that the dog park looks in very good shape compared to where it was a year ago. The mud is also, we've had 17, 18 inches of rain too. That has not helped. I think we'll have to see where we are this spring.
Yeah.
It's really too late to do anything now.
What we'll do is we will do a, late fall overseeding. And it's basically putting grass down to grow next spring. But it's a great time of year, yeah, but
Have you considered, opening, having the gate be in a different spot?
it's not a great location. We have considered it. And the problem is, that would be a huge expense to change, and then how do you get to that different spot? Because it need to be on the lower part of the dog park. So.
Don't know if I can ask questions, but, I use the dog park all the time. I think it's great. It's a great resource for the town. The one thing that I would suggest is when you overseeded it last year, the temporary fencing, was just that, very temporary, and there was a lot of, dog owners that didn't abide by it and allowed their dogs to run in that temporary fencing during the overseeding. I don't know if you could make it a little bit more, where you can't, bend over the plastic, but that was just the one thing that I saw when I still took my dog there, that owners didn't take their dogs out and, they allowed them to go over or under. If there's anything that could be done, that could be a little bit more sturdy, that's all I would suggest.
When we overseed in the winter, we'll overseed the whole place. That's, the more seeding we can do, the better off we'll be.
Right.
Do those fees cover the expenses for the park?
Pretty much. Those fees go to the general fund that come in, but we also have a budget in the general fund, that's part of our budget process, so we're okay. If we all of a sudden need to redo the entranceway completely, we wouldn't have enough money to do that. But for operations, like the big expense is the poop bags. It's a, that adds up quick, and the overseeding and fertilizing that we do can add up to, it's a large area. So.
Quick question, and this maybe leads into like the revenues and the fees that you guys were talking about, but is there a philosophy in terms of resident versus non-resident, that you always charge a certain percentage of charge for non-residents
Well, it's $25 for residents,
versus 40?
40 for non-resident, and 15 for each additional dog. It's been that way for some time. And because like you saying, the expenses haven't been greater than
It's
what
been
was
fine.
affordable, it's been fine, and it seems fair.
Yeah, no, I just didn't know if like across the board, when you were looking at programs where there was like a member, non-member, if you always like, it was 150% or,
We
like
don't do a
that,
percentage, but in general, all of our programs and everything are for the residents.
right?
Right.
Just was looking at
Yeah.
like the pool and stuff like that.
Right.
But because it also too legally, we're really a subsidiary of the state, so even though we manage the parks and finance them, it's really all in the jurisdiction, you can't exclude non-residents.
Right. No, I
Legally,
just
we
was
cannot
wondering
do
if
that.
there was
That's-
like that.
People have talked to us, and there actually have been court cases in this matter too, so. Okay, good question, yeah. Anything else for Susan? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, John, new discussion on our fees.
Okay, so you do have a 3-page document in there. The first page is basically our programs, anything from like before and after school programs, flag football, soccer, etc., all that type of stuff. So we made some minor changes to them. Well, our general philosophy is to try to make programs affordable. We try to be the affordable avenue. We're not in the business of making money. With that said, we now have a self-sustaining fund. So anything that comes in for our programs goes into a fund where we can use it directly ourselves. In the past, we had to have everything budgeted, and then we could only spend to the budget, which limited on us when we wanted to run a new program, similar to the fall fair, that type of thing. So, the first page is our programs. Probably most notably, you know, we did raise up some of the soccer programs, the little kids. We've hired a company to come in to not just do soccer, it's more of a wide-ranging program. So, and then like guitar lessons, we've gone down in the price. And mainly this is what when we can afford to find vendors and instructors to take care of it, we go at different prices. So that's kind of just a quick overview of the different programs. I'll be glad to interrupt me with any questions as we go.
So I have a question about the adult tennis clinics, where I was just looking at it, that in the fiscal year, the fall, it's less for the adult tennis clinic than it is in the summer,
I believe because of the number of weeks of the program.
but other things didn't change, so that's just specific, like the kids didn't change.
Yes, without having every one of the programs exactly in front of me,
That's the
Yeah.
difference.
that's the main thing. Most, like our tennis clinics, that is done by an outside vendor that we hire.
So then next fall, you're anticipating that it's gonna go from 95 to 230 to all the way up to 250 to 280
Yes, because I don't.
because of the vendor.
Yes. So, and very, very simply with our racket sports, we're working on a cost sharing or profit sharing, so to speak, where the vendors get most of the money and then we get a percentage of that. We have to pay for the software for the program, our registration programs, and that type of things.
I think that's pretty standard in terms of like how racket professionals deal with it,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
So then it's a different person that's gonna do your spring and summer into the fall, or
It's-
you're anticipating that for fiscal year 25, because it's such a different fee structure?
It's mainly because of our fee structure, what they're willing to provide us for the price.
All right, thank you.
You know, John, there's no difference between residents and non-residents for these programs.
A lot of our programs are only residents.
Only residents.
Yes.
Oh,
Mhm.
I mean, this is a very commendable. I mean, if you look at these increases, I'm not seeing anything that's more than about 5%.
Yeah. I'm
That,
surprised.
and this holding is, I think, based on the inflationary environment we've been in the last couple of years, it's a good message to send to,
Yeah,
you know,
That's
really, yeah, consistent message.
compared to some of the, clubs and things like that, we're very affordable.
I'm saying, I'm a little surprised that there isn't some increase, just because people's salaries have gone up, you got, things like that. Okay.
The cost of living is going up.
Yeah.
Even though the money comes back into our self-sustaining account, it's not like we get a percentage of it.
No, I know.
So, we still try to make it the most affordable that we can.
So is the process that this goes down to the Board of Selectmen and then they will submit it?
If you recommend it forward at some point in time, since we've got a new Board of Selectmen coming,
Yeah.
at some point in time, they're gonna look at the fees. Usually that happens in October. It's supposed to happen in October. I don't think it actually was finalized till like January last year.
We should put this in a motion.
If possible.
Yeah.
Unless there's anything.
Is there any other questions or discussion?
But
John, can you hear me?
that's Tim.
Oh, Tim? All right.
Oh, yeah.
Motion. I'm sorry, Tim, you have a question?
Yes.
Yeah, I had a question just on the soccer and the tennis clinics, so the outside vendors that you're talking about. Are these companies running the programs like in lieu of volunteer coaches? Is that part of these outside programs?
For the soccer, the little kids, yes, it's an outside company, it's got a parent coaches.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank
I
you.
think it's terrific that your soccer enrollment has gone up as much. You talked about it last month, but I think that's great. So,
It's nice.
yeah, nice that that's not.
Any other questions? I don't want to rush, but any questions? There's a motion from Keith, to accept the proposal. Is there a second? Susan, thank you. All those in favor? Object? So carried. Great, thank you. John, your report.
Okay. It's fall, leaves are falling, programs are finally ending, like soccer is gonna end this weekend, which is really late for us, only because of the rain and all the rainouts we had on Saturdays. So things like that are happening. We had a wonderful, successful fall festival, fall family festival, where we had over 1,000 people that came. We had hay rides and, corn maze, etc. And we had a waiting list and everything. We opened up Breakfast with Santa, which is coming up soon, and it probably sold out in about 15 to 20 minutes.
Wow.
So we're trying to look to see what we can do to accommodate more people, but that becomes very difficult. So with that said, as far as park maintenance is concerned, they've been seeding the fields, they're working on leaves, winterizing irrigation systems. Softball and baseball is over with, and then the field renovations will start very soon. And the last thing that I have is it's budget season. So if there's anything such as like the propane for the heaters or anything else, whether it's operational or capital projects, please let me know. Don't know the exact schedules on anything yet, but it will be the Board of Selectmen is usually in December, or maybe it could be into January, but, and we'll go from there, so.
Question about the tennis budget. Will you have the kind of bonus that you had built in to encourage them to have the clay courts, in good shape earlier rather than later?
We're gonna keep, and unless something happens, we're gonna keep the tennis budget intact. We're gonna increase it a little bit because I just got their proposal for next year and it's gone up a little bit. But we'd like to do the same, the early opening bonus.
Right.
And we'd also like to do the summer maintenance. That really helped when they came in to do the maintenance in the summer.
Really good. And where do we stand on the extra football court? I mean, should they?
Paddle court, extra paddle.
That, from last year, that would be in this year's budget presentation. I mean, this coming year's budget, if everything stays the same. So that would be that, and the plaza would be July of 24.
And
would be when you first could spend it.
just roughly, what is the cost? Because I know that was like, extra paddle court, but then they're also going to kind of add an elevated kind of connector between all the courts.
There's gonna be a whole patio out
Right.
there,
Yeah.
picnic area type thing.
And what's kind of the ballpark figure for
I
that?
don't offhand, Keith, I'm sorry. I don't, without having my budget book with me, I don't know.
Okay.
I'd be guessing.
I'm not again.
Any other questions?
John, the Waveney House rentals, are they commensurate with other towns around here?
Pretty much. Those rates, we're not looking to change anything for this upcoming year. We're waiting until the bathrooms truly come online, the elevator there's gonna be work done on that, hopefully over the winter. Yeah, so right now, we don't feel there's a reason to increase them for what we're providing. The one thing that's, that I personally would like would be an awning out off the back patio that would be up. So that would increase your rainy day space. You'd still be outside, but if it was drizzling, you'd be okay.
Will you be coming back to the commission, sometime in 2024 with proposals on
These things, part of the budget process, with the new Board of Selectmen coming, it all depends how they perceive it. It becomes the first selectman's budget. So if she wants us to come present to you beforehand, that's fine. But she'll have the right to pick and choose what she wants, and she might also say, no, once I approve the budget, then it can go to the commissions, but that changes with different administrations, so I don't know yet.
Any other questions for John? Thank you. My report's brief. Our next meeting is on Wednesday, December 13th. That'll be our last one for the year. And then also in January, I will be putting together the subcommittee report for like yearly reports and like the comments that Francesca and Keith made about the panel. If there's certain committees that you would like to be on, would like to report on, just send me an email. Okay, that would be great. And sir, do you have a comment or anything? Okay. And so there's a motion to adjourn.
No, comments from the audience, please. I have my hand raised.
We can't see you.
We can't see you.
Oh, you can't see the Zoom on your screen?
Still pictures.
I have Betty Lavostek.
Okay, Betty.
I just have a comment on the proposed rate increases and decreases. What has not been mentioned are the aquatics that we have, the pool and the beach. So I want to know what would be the rates for residents and non-residents and guest passes.
Betty, they're staying the same. There's no change.
Oh, okay, because what I've heard from the Kiwanis people, $12 for a guest pass is a lot of money, because when you go to the pool, first, the hours are longer. There's a concession stand, there are activities going on. And when you go to Kiwanis, there's basically a beach and nothing else. So,
Betty, the guest fees are consistent with the pool, with the tennis courts, with the paddle, with the pickleball, so you have to, it's gotta be a consistent charge across the board, okay? We can't have one lower one at one facility and a higher one at another. You can't do that.
well, the facilities are not all the same, as you know. And then the other question you had on maintenance issues, the umbrella all the way to the left side was never installed properly, and that's the Sunbrella in Kiwanis. It doesn't close, and so it takes time for someone to close it at the end of the season, so it's permanently open. It never was installed properly, and I'm wondering if the top portion of that umbrella can be replaced.
Betty, it's actually down now. I think you.
I know,
So-
because you do it at the end of the season.
The cable snapped, and I plan on hopefully reinstalling it correctly, and you'll be able to go up and down. Okay?
All right, thank you.
Betty, thanks so much for your comments. Is there a motion to adjourn? Okay, second, Lindsay. All those in favor, say aye. Okay, thank you, everybody. Great meeting, great comments.